I never thought that a visit from my mother's best friend would lead me into such a complicated and forbidden situation. At 27, I was living in Montreal, pursuing my career as a freelance graphic designer and enjoying the independence of my own apartment in the heart of the city. My mother, always worried about me living on my own, would occasionally send her friends to check in on me whenever she couldn't be around herself. It was sweet if a little overprotective, but I never minded until the day it changed everything. Her best friend, Claudia, was a glamorous woman in her mid-50s with an aura of confidence that turned heads wherever she went. She had been a family friend for as long as I could remember, often present at our family gatherings, and she always had a kind word or a piece of advice for me. Claudia was the kind of woman who could command a room with just her presence, elegant, poised, and with a mischievous sparkle in her eyes. But I had never seen her as anything other than my mother's friend, someone who was like a second aunt to me. That all changed on a warm summer afternoon when I had just returned from a long day of meetings and errands. I was exhausted, eager to relax, and I decided to take a shower to wash off the stress of the day. I didn't hear the doorbell ring, didn't hear Claudia letting herself in with the spare key my mother had given her. I was oblivious, lost in the rhythm of the warm water and my own thoughts, until I heard a voice call out from the living room. "Emily, are you home?" Startled, I quickly turned off the water, my heart racing. I grabbed a towel and wrapped it around myself, stepping out of the shower with water still dripping from my hair. "Claudia?" I called back, surprised. "What are you doing here?" "I just stopped by to see how you were doing," she replied, her voice moving closer. "Your mother asked me to check in on you. I hope I'm not interrupting." I felt a rush of embarrassment as I realized she was getting closer to the bathroom. "No, it's fine. Just give me a second to get dressed," I called out, but it was too late. The bathroom door creaked open, and Claudia stood there, her eyes widening as she took in the sight of me standing there in nothing but a towel. For a moment, we both froze. I could feel the heat rising to my cheeks, my pulse quickening with a mix of shock and discomfort. But Claudia's expression didn't change. If anything, there was a flicker of something else, something I couldn't quite read in her eyes. "I'm so sorry," she said, though she didn't look away. "I didn't realize you were in the shower." "It's okay," I mumbled, pulling the towel tighter around myself. "I just wasn't expecting anyone." Claudia's gaze lingered for a moment longer before she finally stepped back, her lips curling into a soft smile. "You've grown up so much, Emily," she said, her voice low and almost admiring. "You're a beautiful young woman." "Thanks," I replied, feeling a mix of flattery and awkwardness. "Let me just get dressed, and I'll be right out." I quickly closed the door and leaned against it, trying to steady my breathing. What was that? Claudia had always been kind, but something about the way she looked at me just now felt different. Intense, almost. I shook my head, trying to brush off the feeling. She was my mother's friend, and she had simply walked in at the wrong moment.
It was nothing more than that.
I dressed quickly, throwing on a pair of shorts and a t-shirt, and joined Claudia in the living room. She was sitting on the couch, her posture relaxed, but her eyes followed me as I entered the room. I sat down across from her, forcing a smile as I tried to push the awkwardness from my mind. "Thanks for checking in on me," I said, hoping to steer the conversation back to safer ground. "I've just been really busy with work, but everything's fine." Claudia nodded, her eyes still fixed on me. "I'm glad to hear that. Your mother worries about you, you know. She's always telling me how proud she is of you, but she wishes you wouldn't work so hard." I shrugged, trying to keep things light. "You know how it is. Freelancing isn't exactly a 9-to-5 job." She smiled, but there was something in her expression that I couldn't quite place. "Yes, I suppose you're right. But it's important to take care of yourself too. You're young, and you have your whole life ahead of you." There was a pause, a lingering silence that felt heavy with unspoken words. I shifted uncomfortably, unsure of where this conversation was going. "Yeah, I guess," I said, trying to fill the gap. "Anyway, how have you been? It's been a while since we've seen each other." Claudia leaned back, crossing her legs gracefully as she studied me. "I've been good. Busy, as always. But I've been thinking a lot lately about life, about the choices we make. It's funny how things turn out, isn't it? I nodded, not quite sure what she meant, but feeling the weight of her words. Yeah, I guess so. She watched me for a moment longer, her gaze piercing, almost as if she was searching for something in my expression. Then she leaned forward slightly, her tone dropping to something more intimate. Emily, have you ever felt like there's something missing in your life? Like there's more you want, but you're not sure what it is? I hesitated, taken aback by the sudden shift in the conversation. I don't know, maybe? I mean, I'm happy with my life, but I guess everyone feels that way sometimes. Claudia's smile softened, her eyes holding mine with a curious intensity. You're still so young, Emily. You have so much to explore, so much to experience. Don't be afraid to go after what you want. I nodded, not quite sure what to make of her words, but feeling a strange sense of connection. I'll try to remember that. She stood up, smoothing her skirt as she walked over to the window, looking out at the city below. You know, I've always admired your independence, your drive. But sometimes I wonder if you're truly happy, or if you're just going through the motions. The question caught me off guard, and I felt a rush of defensiveness. I am happy, I insisted, though the words felt hollow even to my own ears. I've worked hard to get where I am, and I'm proud of that. Claudia turned to face me, her expression softening. Of course you are.
And you should be.
But don't forget to make time for yourself, for what makes you happy. Life is too short to spend it all working. I nodded, feeling a mix of gratitude and confusion. There was something about Claudia's presence, her words, that felt both comforting and unsettling. It was as if she saw through the walls I had built around myself, saw the cracks that I tried to hide. Thank you, Claudia, I said quietly, unsure of what else to say. I appreciate that. She smiled, a warm, genuine smile that made me feel at ease. Anytime, Emily. You know I'm always here for you. As she turned to leave, I felt a strange urge to stop her, to ask her to stay. But I didn't. I watched as she walked out the door, her presence lingering in the room long after she was gone. Over the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about Claudia. Her words, her gaze, the way she had looked at me in the bathroom. It all played over and over in my mind. I knew I was overthinking it, that I was reading too much into an innocent visit from a family friend. But the feeling wouldn't go away. Then one evening, I received a text from her. Hey Emily, I was wondering if you'd like to meet up sometime. Maybe grab a coffee or a drink. Let me know. My heart raced as I read the message. I hesitated for a moment, my mind racing with all the possible implications. But against my better judgment, I found myself typing back a response. Sure, that sounds great. How about tomorrow evening? We agreed to meet at a small cafe near my apartment, a cozy little spot with dim lighting and soft music playing in the background. I arrived a few minutes early, nervously fidgeting with my phone as I waited for her. When she walked in, she looked as elegant as ever, her smile warm as she spotted me. Emily, she greeted me, leaning in to kiss me on the cheek. It's so good to see you. You too, I replied, feeling a flutter of nerves in my stomach. Thanks for inviting me. We ordered our drinks and settled into a quiet corner, making small talk about work, life, and everything in between. But as the conversation went on, I could sense the tension building, a tension that had been there since our last encounter. Emily, Claudia said suddenly, her tone more serious. I've been thinking a lot about what I said the other day. About going after what you want. I nodded, unsure of where she was going with this. Yeah? She leaned in slightly, her eyes locking onto mine. I meant what I said. Life is too short to hold back, to not take chances. I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of her words. I know, but what are you saying? She reached across the table, her hand gently covering mine. I'm saying that I see something in you, Emily. Something that I think you're not allowing yourself to explore. And I want to help you with that, if you'll let me. My mind was racing, a mix of emotions swirling inside me, confusion, fear, and a strange sense of excitement. Claudia, I don't understand. She squeezed my hand, her gaze softening. You don't have to understand it right now. Just know that I'm here, and I care about you. I felt a rush of emotion, a mix of gratitude and something deeper, something that I couldn't quite name. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice trembling. "That means a lot to me." We spent the rest of the evening talking, the conversation flowing easily despite the underlying tension. When it was time to leave, Claudia insisted on walking me home. As we reached my apartment building, she turned to me, her expression thoughtful. "Emily, I hope you know that you can always come to me," she said softly. "For anything." I nodded, feeling a warmth in my chest that I hadn't felt in a long time. "I know. Thank you, Claudia." She leaned in, kissing me on the cheek, but as she pulled away, our eyes met, and for a moment, I felt something shift between us. It was brief, just a flicker of something unspoken, but it was enough to leave me breathless. "Good night, Emily," she said, her voice soft. "Good night," I replied, watching as she walked away, her silhouette fading into the night. Over the next few weeks, Claudia and I continued to meet up, our conversations growing deeper, more personal. We talked about everything, our fears, our dreams, our regrets. And as the walls between us came down, I found myself drawn to her in ways I hadn't expected. It was during one of these meetings at a quiet wine bar that everything came to a head. We were sitting close, our shoulders brushing as we shared a bottle of red wine. The atmosphere was intimate, the air thick with unspoken tension. I could feel Claudia's gaze on me, could sense the shift in her demeanor. "Emily," she said quietly, her voice tinged with vulnerability. "There's something I need to tell you." I turned to face her, my heart racing. "What is it?" She took a deep breath, her eyes searching mine. "I care about you, more than I should, and I don't want to keep hiding it." My breath caught in my throat, a rush of emotions flooding through me. "Claudia, I know this is complicated," she continued, her voice filled with sincerity. "But I can't pretend anymore. I want to be with you, Emily. I want to explore whatever this is between us." I stared at her, my mind a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts. I knew this was wrong, knew that I should put a stop to it. But the truth was I felt the same way. I had been fighting it, denying it, but there was no denying the connection we shared. "I don't know if I can do this," I whispered, my voice trembling. It's too much." Claudia reached out, her hand gently cupping my cheek. "I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give. I just need you to know how I feel." I closed my eyes, leaning into her touch, my mind racing. I knew this was risky, knew that it could complicate everything. But the pull was too strong, the temptation too great. "Claudia," I murmured, opening my eyes to meet hers. "I feel it too." She smiled, a soft, knowing smile that made my heart flutter. "Then let's not waste any more time." Before I could respond, she leaned in, her lips capturing mine in a gentle, lingering kiss. It was soft, hesitant, as if giving me a chance to pull away. But I didn't. I kissed her back, my hands tangling in her hair as I surrendered to the moment. When we finally pulled apart, both of us were breathing heavily, our foreheads resting against each other. "We'll figure this out," Claudia whispered, her voice filled with determination. "Together." And in that moment, I believed her. I believed that we could navigate the complexities of our feelings, that we could find a way to be together. It wasn't going to be easy, and there were still so many unanswered questions. But for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of clarity, a sense that I was exactly where I was meant to be. As I looked into Claudia's eyes, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. And that was enough.